Amanda, I don't know about you, but I am still laughing about Can't Buy Me Love. Patrick Dempsey and that ridiculous, PBS ritual dance, hysterical. But this week, we're shifting gears big time.
Big time is right, Missy. Last week was all about teenage love and comedy. This week, well, we're diving into Terms of Endearment. It is a roller coaster of emotions, to say the least.
It really is, sister. I mean, the movie has it all, right? Like family drama, laugh out loud moments, and also scenes that just break your heart. And I'm not even going to lie, I'm tearing up right now just thinking about it.
Well, it's a tearjerker, real fans. And I'm going to say, grab your Kleenex. But even though this is going to take us through all the emotions, sister, just like when we watched it, I am going to commit. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. That's my mantra while I'm talking
mantra?
today. I'm not going to cry.
Okay.
Yep.
I can't promise the same thing. But anyway, let's go.
I'm Amanda.
And I'm Missy. And this is Real Sisters Rewind.
Join us as we go back to the 80s.
Welcome back to Real Sisters Rewind. I'm Missy Washam, and I'm here with my sister and precious co-host, Amanda Stephens. If you're a fan of 80 movies and love rewatching them, you are in the right place.
Absolutely. And I'm here with my precious sister, Missy. Each week we rewind.
I have to pause. This is our second week in a row with no guest, precious sister.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. That's right. Well, we're able to take it on by ourselves. Don't worry.
It might be good that we don't have a special guest on this one because, again, I can't promise I won't cry.
For sure. For sure. Each week we rewind. Did I say rewind? Rewind. We rewind to one of our favorite films of the 80s decade, breaking it down scene by scene while sharing some fun facts about the time it was released and some movie trivia.
And of course, we have to sprinkle in some of our personal stories too.
Yeah, that's part of the fun. And this week, we're tackling a movie, like I said, is a roller coaster of emotions, Terms of Endearment.
Well, before we get started, I say we ask our real fans, if you haven't yet, subscribe to the podcast. And if you haven't yet, please leave us a 5-star review. If you do, we'll send you a Real Sisters Rewind sticker. They're super cute. Just take a screenshot of your review and email it to hello@realsistersrewind.com.
And sister, speaking of cute stickers, real fans, you can't see it. I might have to take a picture to show everybody, but you see what's behind me.
I see it. It's great art. It's a canvas done by the wonderful Allison who created our logo. She put our logo on canvas. It's really cool.
Yeah, she painted it.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It's fantastic.
All right. Are you ready to dive into one of the most emotional movies of the 80s?
I guess so. Here we go.
Let's rewind all the way back to 1983.
November 23rd, 1983. Terms of Endearment hit theaters just in time for Thanksgiving. I was 15, Amanda, and I'm thinking if I was 15, I do the math -8. You were 7. You definitely didn't see it in theaters, which is a theme for a lot of these movies that you didn't see them in theaters. But do you remember the first time you saw this?
I 100% remember it. It is when I was in high school. It's when we lived at 16 Dunlith Court. And I actually, with my friend Clifton that did the Back to the Future episode with us, we would always rent like movies we had never seen before. And this is when we were talking about that I had never seen, but he had seen and was like, oh my gosh, you've got to see this. So we went to Blockbuster and we came back.
Blockbuster.
Yep. We rented it from Blockbuster and came back to watch it. And I was a basket case.
Yeah. We should have asked Clifton to be on here.
He'll have to wait a while before he gets another turn.
Did he cry?
No.
No?
He just no, he was more into the because it's such an incredible film, the acting and Jack Nicholson and all that.
Yeah.
And he knew it would make me sob.
Yeah. Well, I sobbed the first time I saw it, but I did not see it in theaters. I actually didn't see it for several years. I would say probably 4 years. I was living in the dorm on USM's campus at Panhellenic, and we had movie night for the Kappa Deltas, and we watched it in the chapter room, and I was also a basket case. And I was a crier anyway, especially back then. But you give me a movie like this, and it was an ugly, snotty, horrible cry. I admit
it's too much.
Mm-hmm.
It's just too much.
Mm-hmm.
Too much. I think last week's movie, you said you also watched in the chapter room.
I know. I was thinking about that. I watched them not too far apart in time, too, which is funny because this one came out so much sooner.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let's start diving into 1983 and talk about what was happening during this year.
Absolutely. I could talk about 1983 all night long. And by the way, that's a clue, sister, to the number one song on Billboard's Top 100. Can you guess it? Sure.
I'm thinking it would be All Night Long.
All night. Yes, you are right. Oh, it was such a great song. Still is a great song. I mean, once a great song is always a great song.
Is that Lionel?
It is Lionel Richie. He was topping the charts of American Top 40. And meanwhile, Return of the Jedi, which we've got to do pretty soon, it was ruling the box office, and everyone in the world, it seems, was falling in love with Ewoks. I'm sure you did. I did not at the time. But do you know what animal Ewoks were designed after?
Is it my little Shih Tzu puppies?
Shih Tzu puppies. Yes, and we
like
both
them.
have one, and they sound like them. They actually designed the sound of the Ewoks after the whiny sound of an
Ewok. Well, they look, I can just see it in their little face. But what I was going to say is Return of the Jedi is one I did see in the theaters. I remember it. I had my underoos.
Don't tell anymore. We'll do it soon. Let's hold off on that.
I have to say one thing about the Ewoks.
Okay.
They were the cutest.
They were the cutest.
Yeah, and I had like little figures that you could play with.
Well,
I won't say anymore.
Let's do it. Let's get it scheduled. We'll do it soon. And you can tell all about your Ewok and Return of the Jedi stuff, of which I had nothing.
Now, this movie is pretty heavy. And the week that this movie came out, my sweet little Sesame Street was also dealing with a pretty heavy topic too.
On Sesame Street? You mean,
yes, girl.
Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street?
That's the one. I loved it when I was a kid, and they did not shy away from the heavy topics. Well, Mr. Hooper passed away.
Oh, the little man that always had the broom and was sweeping.
Yes, Mr. Hooper passed away. And instead of avoiding it, just like, oh, he's not on the show anymore, Big Bird addressed it and talked about it on the show.
Oh, do you remember it? Like, were you sad that Mr. Hooper died?
I don't remember it, but I did love Sesame Street so much.
Well, you were pretty sensitive as a little tyke. I bet you knew it and cried, and you were sad.
Upset, probably so.
Well, speaking of heavy, did you see the documentary on Netflix? It was called Memories of a Murder, the Nielsen tapes. I'm not sure if it's still on. Do you know if you saw it?
I have not seen it, but I will be running and not walking to catch it ASAP.
Well,
I've never heard of this.
Well, the reason I bring it up is because it's all about a man from Britain who was a serial killer. Amanda, he was horrific. And he had just been sentenced to life in jail in November of our year of 83.
Have you seen the doc?
I saw pieces of it. And I was doing a little research before our podcast. And honestly, I don't know if I can say it. Like, I had to look away, and that's tough for me to say about true crime. It's bad.
Yeah, because you're a true crime connoisseur.
I am, which really disturbs my husband.
Well, also about this time, since it was late November, people were getting out their Sears catalogs and making their Christmas lists. They were circling away what they wanted for Christmas. And some of the big gifts for boys were wrestling figures. And I know that would have been my husband 1000%. He loved wrestling. He would have been wanting some wrestling figures as well as some of those Star Wars figures.
Well, I didn't want wrestling figures, but I do know for girls about this age, it probably was something we've talked about before, which was Cabbage Patch Kids. But this wouldn't have been on your list, would it have? Because you would have already gotten your fake one for your birthday that year, I think, just a few months earlier.
Excuse you. I would have gotten it, but I would have still had it on my list because I was ready for the real one.
You wanted
with
the
that
real thing.
Signature. Did we post the picture of me getting the fake one?
I don't know. You take care of all our postings.
I've got to go back, real fans, because if I have not shared
I think you did post it.
Have to share the devastation.
Yeah, I think you did post it. I think you did post it.
Do you think that you had leg warmers on your list, Missy?
Probably so.
I remember that you got a pink pair one Christmas.
I did. And I'm not exactly sure which Christmas I got them, but it might have been that year. I don't know. But
I don't think they were very comfortable.
No, they weren't. But as I've said before, it really didn't matter at that time if it was comfortable or not, if you wanted to be in fashion, right? I taught you that when you were 7 years old and it made you mad. And listen, so one more thing about Christmas, or you may have something else too, but what I will say is that year in our stockings, we got fruit roll-ups, like out of the packet and in our stocking because they had just come out earlier that year. And I remember I thought they were so cool.
So I love those things, like still to this day.
Still today. Them. No, I never liked the way they tasted though, but I remember you liking them. Oh my gosh.
And if I got one in my Smurfs lunchbox, I can still see that lunchbox today, smell it, everything. That Smurfs lunchbox in elementary school, I was so happy because not only did I love the way they tasted, but there was a challenge in trying to peel the fruit roll up off in one
and
piece.
not get a tear. Yes.
There was great satisfaction in that. But you could just make them last forever. They were so yummy. Well, this movie has got a lot going on, so we better dive into it, sister.
Let's do it.
This film was directed by James L. Brooks, and this was his feature film debut. And man, what a debut it was. He was already a legend in TV.
Well, I thought his name sounded familiar.
With the Mary Tyler Moore Show and Taxi. But he really knocked it out of the park with this one. I didn't watch Mary Tyler Moore or Taxi. Did you? You may
I
have.
did. I watched them both. Like Mary Tyler Moore, I think when I watched it when I was really young, for some reason I'm thinking it was already in reruns. And then Taxi, you remember when we had Dana on, we talked about Taxi and it was a big show at the time. But I didn't know. It's hard to think that someone who did Taxi, right, could do something
Right.
like Terms of Endearment. But I mean, the show had heart.
Yeah.
He was really great though, for sure. Well, the movie, Amanda, had a budget of 8 million and it went on to gross, are you ready for this? 108.4 million. But here's the thing about this film. It wasn't just a box office hit. It cleaned up during award season. It won 5 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actress for Shirley MacLaine.
Wow. I that's interesting. Like I think it was great. I'm just thinking like I mean that's a lot for this film. I don't know. I'm reflecting on that a little bit. But let's not forget Jack Nicholson's Best Supporting Actor win. Fun fact, he originally turned down the role of Garrett, the retired astronaut, but James L. Brooks convinced him to do it. And thank goodness, because I really can't imagine anyone else in this role. Can you?
No, not at all. I absolutely cannot. And here's another fascinating fact. I know we said we were moving on to the movie, but speaking of astronauts, right? Like it just makes me think of this. Earlier in 1983, and so maybe space stuff was really big at the time. I think it was
Oh, it
June.
was.
I think it was June in 1983. The first American woman, Sally Ride, went in to space.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it was a big deal. It was on all the news channels, and I had a teacher in 1986, Mrs. Connie Moore, one of my favorite teachers of all time, who wanted to be a woman in space and actually participated in the teacher in space program, and she was one of the top 5 chosen for that. She was actually in, I think, Houston when the space
Challenger.
shuttle Challenger exploded. Yeah.
I remember. I remember we were watching it. Let's put a pin in that discussion because I want us to review the movie Space Camp.
Oh, that's such a great idea. Yes. Wouldn't it be
And we'll
fun if
talk.
I could find Miss Moore and she would get on here and talk about her experience? I'm going to see if I can find her and do that. That would be
That would be
fun.
incredible.
Okay. But
And
anyway,
we have a real fan that loves Space Camp as well that reached out to me.
Yeah, we could do just like a little section with her.
A little interview. Yep.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait to hear who the real fan is that wants to be a part of that. But anyway, back to what you were saying about Jack Nicholson almost not being Garrett. I can't imagine Shirley MacLaine not being Aurora, but do you know that Sissy Spacek was originally offered that role and she turned it down? And I can't imagine anyone but Shirley MacLaine doing it, as I said. And when we actually got to watch this movie together, which I don't think we mentioned,
Yes.
and that was a precious time. And we had heard so much about the awards that we, real fans, we went on to YouTube and we were looking at some acceptance speeches and stuff. And Shirley MacLaine's was hysterical. I mean, she got up there and she was like, "I deserve this." But she did deserve it, but it was
She did deserve it. She did deserve it. It's incredible. But I have to say, I think Sissy Spacek could have maybe pulled it off. I don't know.
No, I do not think so. She's fantastic. Don't get me wrong, but she tends to be kind of like these dramatic roles of woman who tends to be more reserved. I mean, Aurora is like over
That's
the
true. That's
top
true.
and extravagant, and that's
That's
part of
true.
her wit in this show. So I don't think
That's
so.
true.
I don't
Okay,
think
okay, I'll
so.
give you
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, we also have Debra Winger.
Oh my
That's right, y'all.
gosh.
Sissy from Urban Cowboy. We're back
Woohoo.
with her. She plays Shirley MacLaine's daughter, Emma. And this is interesting because the chemistry between the two of them, Shirley MacLaine and Debra Winger, on screen is incredible.
Yes.
But I know we both read tidbits about behind the scenes that maybe things weren't so smooth sailing.
Mm-hmm.
And from my reading, what I could tell, it had to do a little bit more about how they approach their craft and how they
Ah.
work. Um,
Well, I
and
bet they're
that's some
both very
clashed.
opinionated,
Yeah,
right?
probably
They want
so.
it their way. But what amazes me about that, and I saw that as well, is when we were watching the Oscars, right? The Oscar playbacks, like there seemed to be admiration between the two, and there was a friendly exchange. And
Hmm.
so maybe they put on their big girl panties and got over it and said,
Yeah,
look,
probably
we
so.
made a great movie. Can't we all get along?
Maybe so. Or maybe she was just doing it for the cameras. Who knows?
Maybe
But no,
so.
it was cute. Their little exchange was cute.
Well, the cast also had two amazing actors with a huge resume of hits. We had Jeff Daniels, who plays Debra Winger's husband in the film, which we'll talk about, Flap. And he's that famous actor from Dumb and Dumber. And I have to say, though, he is in one of my favorite movies that I thought was from the 90s, but it's from the 80s. So I can't wait to rewind it. It's called Something Wild with Melanie Griffith.
I don't know this movie
Oh
at
my gosh,
all.
it is a great movie. It's like crazy and funny and over the top, and so we'll watch it. We'll rewind it. But also the great John Lithgow, who we spotlighted in Footloose.
Yeah, he was great in this too.
Mm-hmm.
Well, spoiler alert, they both play Debra Winger's love interest, Jeff
Yes,
Daniels
yes, they do.
and John Lithgow in the movie. And so we can't forget that. But there are two other little heartthrobs in this
Mm.
movie. Two of the men that steal our hearts are the two boys that play Debra Winger's kids.
Oh my
Troy
gosh.
Bishop plays the big brother Tommy, the first son they have, and Huckleberry Fox, what a cute name, played the younger brother Teddy, and he was adorable. And they're the boys, but I do have to mention she does have a baby girl eventually named Melanie, and that was played by a little girl named Tara Yiki.
Yes. And you were talking about Huckleberry's name being adorable, but he was adorable. But
Oh my
oh
gosh.
my gosh, he stole my heart. But his real name was actually George Miller Fox. And Amanda, he just died this past November, November 3rd, at the age of 50. Now, this is what was interesting. You know, I had on my detective glasses, so to speak. I was trying to figure out what happened to tell the real fans, but there was no cause of death that was offered, not even on his death certificate. So I
Whoa, that
found
is
that interesting.
weird.
Yeah. But here's the other thing, he did not have a huge career in acting. He actually earned a master's degree in animal science and then got his doctorate from the University of Florida, get this, in plant medicine. And he went on to work as a scientist and a diplomat of the United States Department of Agriculture. Who knew?
Who knew? But also the whole time we were watching it, we're like, he's so adorable. He like surely he was in like a life cereal commercial or something.
Yeah,
Like,
he did have some things when he was younger, but he did not have a career
yeah, as he got
in
older. He
film.
was
Yeah.
so cute. Well, there is one more star, a man who is smitten with Shirley MacLaine's character, who we haven't mentioned yet. And that is a little surprise from Danny DeVito.
I loved it. I was like, Amanda, that's Danny DeVito. And he doesn't have a huge role, but he definitely makes his presence
Wait,
known in the movie.
I'm embarrassed if this is wrong, but wasn't Danny DeVito in Taxi?
Yes, he was.
So his
Maybe
connection
that's
is
why.
James Brooks.
James Brooks was like, come on over and play a cameo for me.
100%.
Yeah.
That's hysterical. I love that. All right, real fans, let's dive into the story itself. Like I said, get ready. This one doesn't pull any punches, but it pulls your heartstrings right from the opening scene.
All right, let's start at the beginning. And I need to say that mantra as we begin. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to cry. But I won't promise it. The movie opens with a young Aurora Greenway, of course, we mentioned, played by Shirley MacLaine. And she's putting her baby daughter, Emma, to bed. Right away, you get a sense of her like eccentric personality. You get the sense that she's overprotective because she's like leaning in a slightly obsessive nature, looking to make sure Emma, who has just gone to sleep, is still breathing. So she's like in the baby's crib.
It's hysterical. She's like climbing.
Body. Yeah.
She like climbs a leg over.
Yeah,
and she's
I know.
like, she's telling her husband, I can't remember what his name was, but she's like, oh my gosh, it's crib death. It's crib death. But she's just sleeping and she pinches her.
I know.
And she starts crying. She's like, oh, that's better.
So over the top.
But something that I thought about that was funny that I noticed after I watched it again is not only did she pinch her, but the funny part is that you would think like an overly obsessive protective mom would pinch her and then get the baby and rock the baby back to sleep. She just left her crying.
Oh,
she was just like, oh, that's better.
Doesn't have that gene. If the character had been written that way, Sissy Spacek might have been a great fit, right?
Yeah, like she wasn't nurturing.
No, not at all. Not
she
at
just
all.
wanted it a certain way.
She
protective,
loved her beyond words without the nurturing, but in kind of an obsessive protective way. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, in the very next scene, Emma's a little bit older and we see that her father's passed away. So now it's just Aurora and Emma.
And this is happening like in the opening credits, isn't it? Like as
it's all
the
very
credits
fast.
are coming on, we're seeing the funeral happen and all that. Yeah. Okay.
And but Aurora's struggling with being a widow, and we see that clearly when we cut to her going in to checking on Emma to tell her good night, and she asks if Emma wants to come sleep with her.
Yes.
And she's like, no, I'm good. And she's like, well, can I sleep with you? And Emma's like, sure. So she sleeps in Emma's bed. And it's such a sweet little moment.
Do you remember growing up, did you like sleeping with mom and daddy? Because I know I did. So our mom was divorced from my biological father whenever I was 3 and remarried mine and Amanda's daddy when I was 5. And I slept with mama like almost every night during that time. And so it was hard to break that when she married daddy. But I don't remember if you slept in there with them.
I would love to. Most of the time, the rule was I had to get my sleeping bag out and make a pallet.
Make a pallet. Yes, I remember that.
The old make a pallet.
And I think you went through a bit of a stage because, of course, by that time, I wasn't sleeping with anyone.
Yeah.
But I think you went through a stage where you had been doing it so often, like at night before you'd go to bed. Like the deal was you had to go to sleep in your bed, but they already had the pallet like made out, and you would just go in there and
because it was right across the hall.
Yeah, of course. Well, that's funny. Did your kids sleep with you?
No, they did. It was the same thing. They would try, and I started pulling the old, you can make a pallet. We did that a lot, especially little Maddie.
Oh, yeah.
She loved,
Mm.
Now, once we got divorced and we lived in Mississippi, they had to go, same thing. They had to go to sleep in their own bed, but oftentimes would end up in my bed.
Well, I tell you what, when I had mine, especially Michael being my first, I loved him sleeping in the bed with us. And he, from the night he was born, I know we're probably going to get letters from our real fans about that's not safe. I know, but it was precious. And as he grew up, wanted to continue to sleep with us. And then, of course, when baby brother was born, it's a lot. It's not the best thing in most
It's not the best,
situations,
and you don't get the best sleep.
but it's a precious time. So, okay,
It
so
is.
back to our movie. As Emma is growing older, we see her turn into this teenager, and she's hanging out with her best friend Patsy. And Amanda, they are both just so beautiful. And I love the scene where they are sitting outside, they're on the ground, they're all dressed like they're going out, but they've heard that the astronaut is moving in next door, and they're so excited. They're just sitting out watching them unload the moving van, just hoping that the astronaut is going to like make his first appearance.
Yep, they want to catch a glimpse. But what's funny here to me also is that you can see right away that Emma is sort of like, I don't know if free spirit is
That's
the
the word
word,
I was thinking, though.
but very much like she just was didn't have as much poise and care and femininity as her friend Patsy. So she was still
Right.
beautiful, but
And
she
not
was
a
just
tomboy. And not a
not a
tomboy
tomboy.
either.
She was just a little more laid back, like,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah.
Well, Aurora doesn't seem to care a thing about this because she is in the garden brushing off what appears to be a suitor back there.
Yep.
He is kind of trying to put the moves on her, and she is basically like, take your hands off me, and just very, very direct with him. But you get the feeling that he is not her only suitor.
Yes. And you also very clearly know she is not interested, but she is still overprotective. And so as she walks out and sees Emma and Patsy, they are now leaving to go out. And she emphatically reminds them to be home by 11, no exceptions.
Yep. And she like fiddles with her outfit and
Oh,
kind of
yes.
tries to
Gets them
fix
all
her.
straight.
The next scene, we see Emma as a young woman. She's still with her bestie, Patsy, but this time she's in her bedroom and she's got on a bridal veil and like a t-shirt. They're like hanging out what seems to be the night before her wedding. And while they're in there hanging out, Aurora is in her room. She can kind of hear them and she's deep in thought.
Oh, you can tell she's like stewing about something. She's stewing, she's thinking, she's flopping around in her thoughts. And she gets up and she goes to tell Emma that she shouldn't marry Flap. And she declares that she is not coming to the wedding.
I know. And we never like find out. Like we don't see the wedding, but I mean, I guess she really didn't go to the wedding.
No, she didn't go.
But despite her saying that, they still go through with the wedding.
Right. She's not going to let her mom change her opinion on that. Her mom's
their
not going to control that.
Their relationship is so quirky. It's so quirky. So after that moment, we go to we're with Emma and Flap after the wedding, and they're back at what I guess is their we assume now is their house.
Can we just stop and talk about the house for a second?
It's a shack.
It's a shack, which
it is a shack.
Explains a little bit about Aurora living in this big mansion
in Houston.
Yeah, and she's like, baby girl. Well, she didn't say it like that, right?
It's a shack. Like I'm like,
she's like she wanted more for her than that.
Yeah, it's like, it's rough. But
Okay, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you
sorry.
said they're back at the house, and I was like, let's talk about that.
They're back at the house, and it's like their honeymoon period time, but they're at home. They're not like on a honeymoon.
Well, he probably couldn't afford to go on a honeymoon, which that's okay. A lot of people don't. There's no judgment there.
Yeah. But it was funny because while they're there, Aurora cannot help herself, and she starts calling Emma nonstop. Phone's ringing.
Yes, and like they ignore it as long as they can.
They do. She says, like, I'm going to ignore it for a day or something. That's going to drive her crazy. And finally, like the next morning, she answers it, and she says that she wants to talk to Flap, or either Emma says, here, talk to Flap. And he talks about respecting their marriage, and they have a quick little conversation, and he tells her, don't call so early in the morning, which Emma thinks is hysterical.
Yeah, he gets to say his piece to the mother-in-law. Mm-hmm. Well, it's not too much after that. They're like at this fancy event at Aurora's. Emma announces that she's pregnant. And let me tell you, Aurora is none too happy. I mean, her reaction really was hysterical. She has a complete meltdown. She's like, why should I be excited to be a grandmother? And she just is not feeling it at all. You thought that scene was hysterical, yes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, it's hysterical. And I also think it was hysterical because you see like all of her, that's when we start seeing her multiple suitors.
Oh, yeah. Danny DeVito's there in that scene.
There.
Yeah.
All at this like tea or whatever
it was. I think it was a fancy dinner. And here's the thing. She didn't just say it like that. Like, she's screaming at the top of her lungs, like, why would I be excited to be a grandmother?
But I also think part of that was because she didn't want her to have a kid with Flap.
Yeah, probably so. But also Aurora thinks pretty highly of herself too. And she wasn't ready to be a grandmother. She probably thought she was too young. I'm at the stage right now. I've got a son and daughter-in-law, and people all the time are like, you can't wait to those grandbabies. And I'm like, oh, I can wait. Now, again, like Aurora, I'll be thrilled when they come, because when that baby comes, Aurora falls in love with it. But she wasn't rushing to it. And we know, though, even though she loved them, she didn't love the idea of being a grandmother even after they were born, because of that scene where we'll talk about later, they are saying goodbye, but Tommy is like, goodbye, Mrs. Greenway.
That was really funny. Well, now Aurora is having a lot of time to herself. Now that her daughter's married, and her attention keeps wandering to the astronauts' antics next door. Like every now and then she sees, she'll peek out of her window, or see them having a party. And she's kind of aggravated, you can tell. Yes. But there's also hints that she's intrigued by his behavior.
Oh, yeah. I thought the same thing. Well, Aurora is about to get a lot more time on her hands, because in the next scene, we see Emma is over visiting, and time has passed, which they do a lot in this movie. From scene to scene, time will pass. We know time has passed because out on the basketball court, outside the window, we see her baby, who is now a toddler. Anyway, she's there visiting with her mom, and she gets a call on, by the way, the wall phone with the squiggly spiral cord, and it's Flap. And as she's talking to him, you can tell that she's not happy. And when she hangs up, she tells her mom that the only school that would accept Flap is in Des Moines. And you can feel the tension rising. And before you know it, Emily and Flap are leaving for Des Moines, and we find out Emma is pregnant again. So take two.
And that's not great. I mean, there's not like, woo, but what's really not great is her leaving. It's so sad. We see her saying goodbye to Aurora and Patsy. They're both there to say their goodbyes. Aurora.
I mean, she's leaving like her home, her childhood home right now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And it's like in their station wagon with the trailer behind it and stuff's piled up on the top. But she's fine. She's like, she's doing it, right? But when she and Aurora say goodbye, it's so sad. They kiss on the lips.
That grossed me out because it wasn't just a peck. It was like,
I know.
Kiss, 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 kiss on the lips, mom and daughter. I did not like that at all. Maybe that's where their conflict began.
Maybe so. But what I love is a couple things. One, Aurora reminds them that their phone bill is going to be enormous because remember back then on those landlines,
long distance.
Yep. And those calls cost money. But I also loved that when they got ready to drive off, she told Flap to pull away slowly because she was like holding her mom's arm and he peeled out of there.
Yeah, he didn't obey her and pull away slowly, but it probably helped the tears from start falling right then. And even little Tommy was sad about leaving Texas. He was sad about leaving Mrs. Greenway too. That's when he said that earlier. Goodbye, Mrs. Greenway. Well, Amanda, did you notice what it looked like when they drove off? You said something about it, but we've got to talk about it with the real fans here because
there was no U-Haul van happening here.
It looked like something off the Beverly Hillbillies, honestly.
Yeah, it was rough.
It looked like a homemade trailer.
It was
stuff piled on it
and tied on top, and that was a long trip from Texas, Houston to Des Moines. So it was a lot.
Well, do you remember what it was like? I think that's why it tears me up so much. I can remember moving from the town, the home I had grown up in when I got married and moved away, and it was so
gut-wrenching.
It was gut-wrenching. As excited as you are to start this new adventure and this new journey, there is the ties that bind are strong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not going to cry. I'm not going to think about it.
Well, I remember when
I used to cry all the way into when I was probably almost into my 30s when y'all would come visit me and leave, I would cry. Or I would come visit y'all and cry.
If I'm at mom's, I'm tearing up right now as I talk about it. If I'm at mom's and I've stayed there for more than 1 or 2 nights, it's still hard for me to leave. I know that sounds crazy, and I live an hour and a half away. It's ridiculous, but.
Well, she doesn't cry because she's got to get her she has got to get her doings done.
She's got to get her doings done. She needs to get those sheets changed from when you were sleeping on the sheets and got to get the refrigerator cleaned out from all the great food that was there that we didn't eat. Thank you for that comic relief because
You're welcome.
Thinking about driving away slowly.
Not going to cry.
All right. So let's go back to Aurora's, right? I almost said Sissy's moved, but Emma's moved. And Aurora's back at her house and she's in the garden doing getting her doings done when the neighborhood astronaut starts making all these loud noises. And so Aurora yells at him to stop. She, walks out of her backyard and walks over there and he calls her over. And this is one of my favorite scenes because he mentions that he needs a date for the NASA. It's a NASA hosted astronaut dinner and it's at the White House and all that. And as you can tell, she's kind of getting a little bit excited. He says, I needed a date, but it's been canceled. But he wants to know what she would have thought about that had it not been canceled. And she said, well, I would have liked to see the White House. But he then adds that he actually was thinking about asking her out.
Yes, and their banter continues, and they're kind of tiptoeing around flirting, I would say. Not actually flirting, tiptoeing around it. He teases her a little bit about having lunch together sometime, and then saying, if you wanted to have lunch with me to improve the neighborhood atmosphere, I wouldn't say no.
I know when
is
she
her
said that, I was
response.
rolling. And I think what I loved about the scene is they're like talking over the hedges.
Hmm.
And he's like, come down here so we can be closer. So they walk
Yeah, so we
down
can
the fence
talk.
line and they get closer. And I think it is full out flirting for sure.
At that point it is.
Yeah.
And but she's still very reserved. You know, she
Yeah.
keeps her arms crossed and she's
Oh,
still trying to be very
yes.
proper.
Prim and proper. But he just was
Mhm.
like, we're standing too far apart. So I loved that.
Yeah. Jack Nicholson is
Gold.
quite charming
He is. He's
in
very
this
charming.
film. Meanwhile, Emma and Flap arrive at their new house in Des Moines, which let's just say is much nicer than the
So
shack.
much nicer. He must have
And
got a
you
little
said,
extra in his school loans to get that
yeah,
place.
like they pulled up and she's like, oh my gosh, is this it? And it's like really nice. And they're unloading and trying to get settled in. Of course, she's pregnant with a
Yeah.
toddler in tow, and they're trying to, drag everything off the truck up into the house and all that.
It is. And Amanda, like life is moving forward, but like you already start very quickly in after their move, you start seeing signs that there's a strain on their relationship. And
Yeah.
look, let's face it, that's a tough time when you've
Oh,
got a
yeah.
toddler and you've got a baby in tow. I mean, mine were spread out further than yours. My kids are 5.5 years apart, but yours were stair steps too. It's a hard time in a
Hmm.
mom's life and a marriage. It's tough. And
Yeah.
we're
And she was
starting to see it.
isolated.
Yeah.
She was
Oh, she was
isolated.
away
She
from her
didn't
mama.
she
Yes.
didn't work and she was away from her family and friends. So it was tough. Yeah, and Emma calls her mom and asks to borrow money. Like we said, they're apart and times are tough. Um, and Emma, knowing her mom so well, says, "Don't yell. I think I might be pregnant again." And
Mm.
Aurora is quick to tell Emma that her life will not improve if she keeps having kids with Flap. And something kind of that I thought was funny here. I don't know if it was funny, haha, but interesting. Kind of like with the wedding scene that we didn't
Uh-huh.
ever see what happened. We don't ever know if I mean, we're kind of led to believe she didn't loan her the money, but I don't know. Like, we don't know. I just thought that was interesting. Like, she definitely has money to loan her,
Oh yeah. She loaned her money. I know she
but she
loaned her
acts
money.
like she's not going to.
Yeah, but
So
she
I don't know.
totally does. She
Yeah,
totally does. So later, Flap comes home. Flap, what kind of name is that? Flap.
that
Anyway,
should have
he
been a red flag.
should have been a red flag. Problematic. But anyway, he comes home and Emma confronts him about where he's been all night because he didn't just come home, he came home like the next
The
morning.
next day.
Yeah. And quite frankly, she has the feeling that he's having an affair.
Yeah, things aren't good. We see them fighting in front of the kids. He tries to gaslight her and be like, oh, yeah, you always get paranoid in the first trimester.
Yes, yes.
Blah, 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 all that. But yeah, they fight in front of the kids, and I think this is where they go sit out like on the porch or something when they do when their
Yeah, and the
parents are
kids
fighting.
hear him fighting and like leave, and she
Hmm.
comes after him. And
Hmm.
I love that. That is such a beautiful scene when those kids are on the lawn outside that
The
church,
church,
and
I
she
know, it's so
walks up to
beautiful.
them and like shows them some love and tells them it's going to be
Yeah,
okay and takes them back home.
yeah. Well, and she also tells them, don't make me hit you out here.
Yeah. She does. She's kind of like her mom in that respect. Like she loves them, but
But she's no nonsense.
no, she is no nonsense, right?
I love that. And there's that grocery shopping scene that happens here too
Oh,
during this difficult
yes.
time where they go to the grocery store and she's got the boys with her and her bill comes to $44, but she doesn't have enough money. And the cashier is really rude about it. Like the cashier
So
comes over the
rude.
announcement and is like, manager on aisle 4, she doesn't have enough money. Like
It's
it's so
horrible.
rude.
Horrible.
It's so rude.
But that is when we meet Sam Burns, who is played by John Lithgow, as you already gave a spoiler alert. He's going to become very significant to Emma because he steps in. He covers the difference between, like, she had like $43 or something. Like, she was very close, but he covers the difference and then he scolds that cashier for being nasty. And he showed Emma some real kindness. It was a very sweet part of the movie.
It was very sweet, but I did think it was hysterical. Did you catch it when he was like, I can't think of her last name, but Emma, he was like, "It's me, Sam from the bank. Remember I turned you down for that loan last month?"
Yes, I forgot about that. But he probably did it in a very sweet way.
Sweet.
He wasn't like, "Customers of the bank,
No.
please no, I'm turning someone down for a loan."
No, he was very sweet. So back in Houston, Aurora is throwing herself a birthday party.
Like only someone with her personality could do.
Oh yeah, it's quite the shindig, and gets completely annoyed by the male suitors, which does include our Danny DeVito.
Yeah, she's invited them all over to celebrate her for her birthday. Come celebrate me.
I think this is the scene too where she like gives one of them a little kiss, and then she's like,
yes.
"Do you want one too?" And like, so. Well, for whatever reason, she's annoyed with them and she's had enough. So she's barefoot with her shoes in hand and she storms over to the astronaut's house, goes to his front door, knocks on the door and tells him she'll take him up on that lunch offer tomorrow at 12:30.
And so that next day, they head to lunch in his convertible. Now, I love this scene because he's really concerned about her riding in the open air. But Aurora, she just assures him
it's fine.
that, grown women are prepared for life's little emergencies. And so she takes her scarf and she puts it over her head and And when he flies off, like, the scarf flies too.
It's hysterical.
Yes.
And like halfway through, she's like, her hair's blown. She's like, could we put that top on now?
Yeah. And you just hear that. You just hear it as you see the car.
Yeah. Well, by the time they get to the restaurant, Aurora's hair is a mess. And it's not just her hair. She has a hair piece.
Yeah.
And she ends up just having to take it out because it is a bird's nest. It kind of reminds me of that Bridget Jones moment when she and Hugh Grant are having to get away and the same thing kind of happens.
Yes. She's like all Doris Day-ish for their getaway. And she ends up looking like a hot mess too. Well, during lunch, the astronaut, and we keep calling him the astronaut. His name's Garrett. But anyway, he glances at other women, and Aurora is not having it. She calls him out for being rude. And the entire lunch is full of that type of banter and tension. And they leave and head home and end up on a drive on the beach. And it's that famous scene that I think Terms of Endearment is absolutely known for. And I did not really notice the other times I've seen it, but he is using his hands to drive. No, his feet. Up. He's using his feet to drive, and she's using her feet to the gas and the brake. And so it's like they're both driving the car, and thank God nobody was on this beach because they would have been killed. But she's pumping the gas, and in the heat of the moment, we don't really know why, she throws the car in park. It propels him into the ocean, and as she runs in there after him, they have their first kiss.
Yes.
It's really sweet. Oh, and by the way, that dress that she's wearing reminds me so much of Mom's wedding dress when she married.
Yes.
And I had the little matching
flowery
one. Yes, the flower, and mine was green, and I wanted to make sure I had a veil too. So I had a little green veil that matched my green dress that all matched the green that was in Mom's wedding dress. That looks like Aurora's. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. She did. Back in Iowa, someone else is meeting for lunch. Emma Emma and Sam, the hero from the grocery store. He invites her to join him as he inspects an empty house for the bank. And well, we can assume
Inspecting an empty house where no one is.
yes, where that is going to lead. But I have to say something here. They seem to be more of like friendly companions. Because they talk about their sick. I don't know. We can talk more about it in their upcoming scenes too. But she's so just nonchalant with him. She's so real and just this is me.
Yeah.
This is me.
I'm just Sissy. Just kidding. I know she's Emma. But all right. So later, back in Aurora's life, she invites the astronaut over to see her Renoir painting. It's the one that she has up. She always refers
in
to
her
it
bedroom.
In her bedroom, it's Emma's life insurance policy. But basically, she was putting limits on where the relationship was going to go with she and Garrett. And so she kind of is having one of those thinking moments and picks up the phone and said, I wanted to invite you over to see my Renoir. And it turns out the Renoir is in her bedroom. And so he comes over and he makes the moves on her. But Aurora stops him in a teasing way and says, don't talk to me like that. Don't you realize I'm a grandmother? And it's so funny because she so didn't want to be a grandmother and now she's using it in a flirtatious way. And despite her protest through lunch and through advances he had been trying to make, they begin, we'll just say they take their relationship to the next level.
Yes, they do.
And then, of course, do you have something to say about that?
Well, I was just going to say she was very much like, don't patronize me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And she's like, I'm a big girl. I can handle myself.
Yeah. Because it almost seems like even from that moment, like as things start progressing, he's like wanting to protect her from him because he knows the kind of player he is.
Yes, that's true.
Well, back in Des Moines, we see that baby number 3, yes, we now have baby number 3. As you mentioned, Amanda, a little girl named Melanie has arrived, and we go right into a scene where she's got the croup. And Emma is steaming her in the bathroom, which you always see on movies, but maybe I did do that one time with one of my boys, like take him in the bathroom and turn all the water on hot water to get steam in the bathroom. I'm not sure, but it is.
Well, maybe they never had the croup. Mine never had it.
So you never did some steaming in the bathroom with your kiddos, huh? With your girls?
No.
Well, Emma is in the bathroom steaming little Melanie to help her get over the croup. And Flap is just kind of hanging out there in the bathroom with her, not really doing anything, but they're having this conversation.
Yeah. Wait, like he's in a sauna.
Yeah.
He's just like chilling in the sauna.
Yeah. And then it just casually, like they're in the midst of trying to get their daughter to breathe. And he casually mentions that he's been offered a job as the head of the English department in Nebraska. Well, Emma is visibly upset. She's in the midst of trying to, get her daughter well and get over this croup. And quite frankly, she doesn't want to leave. And so I'm going to ask you, Amanda, do you think her not wanting to leave has anything to do with that sweet Sam?
I mean, maybe a little bit. But I think she's a little bit too sensible for that.
What do you mean?
I don't think that would be the reason. Like, I think she just really in general, I mean, I think maybe a little bit, but I think in general, she's like feels finally it was hard enough to move from Houston and now they're settled there and she's got the kids in school.
Nice house.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure Sam's part of it, but she seems like she's very like reasonable and sensible and that practical. Wouldn't be what practical. Yeah. That wasn't what like threw her over the edge.
Yeah.
Well, as soon as she can, Emma calls Aurora to talk all about this unwanted move.
Well, of course, you're going to call your mama and be like, you're not going to believe this.
Yeah, she calls her and she just like charges in and starts talking. And But as soon as she gets a moment to catch her breath, Aurora interrupts her and reveals that she's lying there next to the astronaut. And Emma's so excited, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, call me back later, bye."
She was so thrilled that her mom finally had gone beyond just having a suitor, let's say, right? But,
Yep.
things continue to spiral back at Emma and Flaps because Emma goes up to the school to see Flap, and she catches him flirting with a young girl. She's furious. She runs off, and he chases after her, and she says what any of us would want to say, I'm going to my mama's. So she tells him that she's taking the kids, going to her mom's, and warns him that he better not follow her.
That's right. And Aurora wastes no time commenting on Emma's appearance. Once they get there, first thing, they pull up and she jumps on her mom and they're so happy to see each other. But, first thing, she's got a comment telling her she looks run down and she is not going to be able to catch a man like that.
Yeah, but Aurora thinks like she's home and she's leaving Flap. Right.
100%.
Oh, you're here and we got to get you looking good, sister. So
absolutely. You got to catch it. You got to catch a husband. But then the conversation does shift to Garrett, the astronaut, and Aurora gets so giddy. She confesses that she's a little bit scared because she's starting to feel like she needs him in her life.
Not good for a player. Not good for a player.
While she's visiting in Houston, we know she's visiting. Her mom thinks she's back for good. She goes over to visit her friend Patsy, and they're out sitting on the porch swing while the kids are playing in the pool. And they're so adorable. Patsy is in her cute little bikini, and Emma's got the zinc sunscreen over her nose.
Yeah, and she's had 3 kids, so she's not in a bikini.
No, she's not. And she's got her cute little kerchief over her hair, her little bandana in her hair. It's so cute.
It is so cute. I will tell you this, in my research, I know we didn't have as many fascinating facts because we wanted to get to this movie, but I did read that the homes that they used are homes that are in a very affluent neighborhood in Houston, and that porch swing is famous around there. So we might need to go do a little R&D.
Oh, kind of like Steel Magnolias.
Check it out, yeah. And so cool. It's like a proud part of that community. But cool. It is such a cute scene with the 2 girls sitting there. Okay, so Flat calls, and while they're visiting, while they're out there on the swing, and he announces that he's accepted the job in Nebraska and that they're moving. Patsy tells Emma that she should leave him. And actually she says it in front of the kids, and it's not this, it's kind of an awkward situation.
Kind of yucky, yeah.
Yeah. But Emma leaves to head home, and I don't mean to her mom's, right? Of course, some time has passed like it does in this movie, but she goes home to Flap. And when she gets home, Amanda, did you notice this? When she arrived home, she gets straight out of the car and it's raining.
Yeah.
But literally, she is wearing a rain slicker. So I don't know if she had to drive with her windows down. And she's like, I'm going to have to wear my rain slicker while I drive all the way back from Houston.
Maybe so.
Back up home. But anyway, she heads home, and Flap tries to charm her. It's like he wants to brush everything under the rug. And he says, are you going to stay mad for long? Because she got mad and went into her mom's. And she responds something like, well, I think uprooting me and the kids without my consent deserves a pout, which I thought that was.
It was a kind of a cute little.
Yeah. But anyway, Garrett, in the meantime, back in Houston, seems to be breaking up with Aurora. And he's just explaining that he's beginning to feel an obligation. He's not ready for that, like players usually aren't. But I was so proud of Aurora because, she's playing it off as if she's unimpressed and replies to him with the dismissive blah, 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 blah. She didn't
I
want to
know.
hear it. She didn't want to hear
I
it.
know. I know. But she's just acting cool because she's really left feeling humiliated after the breakup.
Yeah, I agree.
And she's sad. She's down. And back in Iowa, Emma is kind of going through a breakup too with Sam.
She's sad too. Yeah.
She's moving and she's got to tell Sam goodbye.
Yep. But she leaves him with a photo of hers. A photo of herself, right? They didn't have Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, Snapchat, none of that to stay in touch. So she gives him a photo of herself, but it's one of her pregnant with, I think she even had like one of her kids in the picture. And she's like, don't forget about me. But that goes right with what you were saying earlier about like, she just unpretentious. Here has a picture of me. And I,
take it or leave it.
Yeah. And here's the thing, like back in those days, even now, if you were going to give someone like a picture, you would probably take 20 to find the one that you would give to someone because you got to get it right. And it's so easy to do now, right? With your phone, you just take pictures. I mean, it's even easier than when we used to all have those digital cameras. I mean, you still had to download that and all that. But back in these days, it was Kodak or a Polaroid and you got
just
what you got.
Picture.
And how many times would you take the I don't know what you would call them, the pod.
The film?
It's not a pod. Yeah, the film.
The roll.
The film roll to get developed. I used to always take mine to Eckerd's because you would get double prints for free. You'd take that film roll, and by golly, if you got one or two pictures out of that, you were.
It was a win.
It was a win,
and that's why you got doubles. So if you got one or two good ones, you could give one to your friend.
Exactly, which she must have been proud of that picture because she gave it to Sam. That's all I'm going to say about that. It was funny.
It was funny. It was very Emma. Now, Flap and family are moved to Nebraska and settled. But when Emma takes a little stroll to Flap to see him at his new office at his new school in Nebraska with her little baby Melanie in tow, she spots the same young girl that she caught him flirting with back in Des Moines.
Yes.
Emma chases after her.
Blows her top.
And tells the girl to let Flap know his wife and kids are going to the doctor for their flu shots.
Yes, they are. And so you're mad at Flap, and now you know that something's not right.
Right.
But in the midst of all that is when everything changes. I'm not either. So at the doctor's office, he is giving her a shot. He's got his arm, and he's like, there's a lump here. And she doesn't even really notice what he's saying. She's like telling the kids to sit up and all of that. But he tells her that, he wants to get it checked out. So she calls Aurora, who surprisingly kind of brushes it off, not in an I don't care kind of way, but she tells her it's probably a... This was awesome. Leash, yeah. It's probably just a clogged cyst from some poor self-care eating habits. Basically, is what she said. But Aurora does tell Emma, it's fine. Don't be scared.
Yeah, like you've never been able to wash yourself properly, so don't worry about it. It's going to be fine. But the doctor wants to take it out quickly and have it tested. And then that's where we're then at the hospital when we hear the heartbreaking news that it is malignant.
Oh, gosh.
Aurora begins to panic, and she and Patsy talk with the doctors.
Yeah, which would never happen today because of HIPAA laws. They would never talk to the mother and friend about.
Totally.
Yeah,
of course. But they advise them to hope for the best and expect for the worst when they ask, what can we expect here?
And I thought the doctor said it in such a cold way. Hope for the best, but expect the worst. Like, again, hopefully there aren't any doctors that would act that way now.
I I don't know. But Patsy suggests that Emma come visit her in New York City when she gets out of the hospital to lift her spirits. Because what's happened is they've taken the tumors out, and they're hoping that they've gotten it all and they're going to do treatment, and she's, it's not going to spread. And
Right.
So Patsy's like, okay, great. When you get out, come visit me.
And so she does. And in New York City, Patsy's introducing her bestie, her lifelong bestie, to her friends. And these friends are a different breed of women, right? They're very like corporate. They've all got jobs. They're all like groomed beyond probably Emma has ever been groomed in her life. They don't really have kids. And so it's really awkward. They're treating Emma kind of beneath them until Patsy mentions that she's got cancer. And then they come out just in
they feel sorry
way.
for her.
Yeah, but it's almost a fake sorry. Like, I didn't like those girls.
Oh, me either. They were very like corporate,
condescending.
City.
Yeah.
Yes, they were. They were condescending.
And here she was, this girl from Texas. They were probably like in their mind going, bless her heart. Not the good kind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. She says she's never had a job, because she has just been a wife and a mom.
Yeah. Okay, Amanda, I think we're going to make it. I think we're going to make it. My nose isn't burning. My nose isn't burning.
This is the hard part. So after the trip, Emma's back at the hospital. I assume that gets sick pretty quickly. Things have taken a turn, and the doctor tells Emma she needs to make plans for her children. And she breaks down in tears, realizing the seriousness and the gravity of the situation. And we know that things are not going to get better for Emma.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't promise that I wouldn't cry, because here I go.
We're not going to cry. Going to cry.
No, this whole scene when she's in the hospital gives me Still Magnolia vibes. Aurora, it really does step into like that motherly role, but very much like Malin. That one scene where she comes out of, we don't see Emma in pain, but Aurora comes out of that room and she's like, it's 10 o'clock. My daughter needs her shot. She needs her pain medicine. And the nurses are busy, as nurses often are. We're so thankful for our nurses, but nobody is moving. Nobody is getting up and answering the call of this mom. And so she's like, all my daughter has to do is wait to 10. It's 10. Give my daughter a shot. Meaning, her daughter had been in pain before 10. It is intense. And it's emotional.
It's rough. And I'm not going to cry because I love this part so much when Aurora, again, she's got those Malin vibes from Still Magnolias, and she heads back to the hotel. She's been at the hospital. She goes to the counter and gets her keys, and she's walking through by the pool with Patsy and the grandbabies, and she starts to go up the stairs, and we see Garrett there standing at the top of the stairs.
The cool cat has a heart.
The cool cat has a heart, and he is there to give her some support. And he's unexpectedly there, and she is thrilled to see him. And the music swells. He takes her in his arms. And we see that he does have like a true sense of care for her, as a person. And then,
he may not be able to commit to a relationship, but he cares deeply for her.
Yeah. And she takes him to the airport the next day. And as he's leaving, she tells him how much it meant to her that he came. And while they're at the airport, they have a little playful exchange. And Aurora tells Garrett that she loves him. Yeah. And
that's where they grab each other's behinds, which is great comic relief, that laughter through tears, which we love so much.
Yeah, and after a pause, he responds, I love you too, kid, before kissing her and heading off into the airport.
Yep. Well, back at the hospital, Emma tells Flap they need to have a little talk. And she asks Flap if he wants the kids. Now,
I cannot
know,
hear.
but you know what?
I cannot with Flap, period.
I know.
Flap is a loser.
And Aurora knew it. But in today's world, this seems completely not something that completely inappropriate. But back in the day, back in the 70s and 80s and 60s and probably 50s and beyond, like
on and on.
And men, if they got divorced, oftentimes they never saw their kids again, or rarely saw them. If a mom died, the kids went and lived with an aunt or grandmother. And so
I know that was probably best for them. Flap's a loser.
Yeah, he is. And when she asked him that, he admits, you know what, I probably would mess it up. And Emma says,
he's a loser.
Emma says, I don't want you to have them. They talk about whether Patsy would be a good fit, which, by the way, the comment is made, no, she only wants Melanie, which, again, shame on you, Patsy, for only wanting the girl. But in the end of this conversation, they agree that Aurora should raise the kids.
Yeah.
It's just hard. But then comes the gut-wrenching scene, sister, when the boys come in to say goodbye.
And again, this is her trying to be, she's so no nonsense. Bring the boys in.
Yeah.
It's tough. Tommy's trying to not show his emotions. The little one's trying not to cry. And she is so no nonsense about it. She's just like, I want you to be good, be nice to the girls. And she's just very, no nonsense.
So two parts of that conversation stand out to me. Number one is Tommy he was at that age where he was a cool cat himself. If you're a mom of boys, they go through that age. Like, they're little and they love their mom, and then they're like cool cats. And she did what I thought was a beautiful thing, because she knew,
oh my gosh, yes.
She knew that one day he was going to regret
acting that way
to her. And she said, I don't want you to feel guilty, because I know you love me. And so that was hard. And then at the very end, when they left, and she was trying to lighten the mood for her baby son, for the littler boy, she kind of got that matter-of-factness on that you kept talking about. And she said, I thought that was going to be tough, didn't you? I was real nervous, and kind of broke the tension there.
Yeah. But I think it went real well.
Yeah, it went real
good.
But they walk out of that door, and she just loses it. She just loses it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And when she's telling Tommy that, I want you to forgive yourself. She's very direct with him, and it's like, do you hear me? Like, it's something she wants to make sure is ingrained in his heart, that he doesn't ever feel guilty about the way he's acting in that moment.
Well, he's just at that such awkward age. Like, everything is outside of his comfort zone right now, and he's just being a little twit.
Yeah, trying to navigate it. It's heartbreaking. It makes me think of Aurora when she tries to comfort Tommy, telling him he can talk to his dad if he needs to. She's like telling him, if you're having a hard time or want to talk about anything, you can talk to your dad. And he really lashes out, saying that they never joined Scouts because Mom was too lazy to take us. And she rears back and slaps him.
Yes.
And
Aurora
he finally
had
breaks.
A hook, right?
Yeah.
She was not going to have that.
And he finally breaks down in tears. Like, she's like, she doesn't say it, but that slap was saying, you're not going to disrespect my daughter and your mother like that.
Yep. So it's Emma's final moments. She's in the hospital bed. Aurora and Flap are in the room. And don't you know that was hard on Aurora because she probably has a lot of bad feelings about Flap.
Because he's a loser.
Well, the nurse comes in. She checks on Emma. And then she walks over to Flap and Aurora and she just softly says, she's gone. And Aurora is completely drained emotionally. And she sits up and she says, I thought I'd be relieved, or I thought it would be a relief.
Be a
or something
relief,
like
yeah.
that.
Yep.
And
But it's not.
It's not, no.
Yeah. Because she's lost her.
Yep.
Well, we cut then to the funeral, and I guess they've gone to Houston. I think that's what they're now in Houston, where I think that's where the funeral was. And afterward, they have a reception at Aurora's house. And Flap, loser dad, reassures Tommy everything's going to be all right.
Yeah, like we'll see each other on holidays or something like that.
Yeah, just he's the worst.
And we also see Garrett is involved with the family. I mean, he's still the neighbor. We know he loves Aurora, even though he may never commit. This might have been a good one to have a sequel for, but anyway.
There is a sequel.
What?
You don't know that? There's a sequel.
You're teasing me.
I swear.
With the same stars?
I can't remember who all's in it. I'll check.
Okay. We need to get
Shirley MacLaine's in it for sure.
Oh my gosh. I don't know how I missed that. Well, I mean, I missed this movie for years and years, so I guess it's not too surprising that I missed it. But anyway, we see Garrett and he's, telling Tommy, I hear you're swimming, and he's, playing with Melanie and joking around that, well, she's too young for him. And it brings that moment that, is my favorite. It's the laughter through the tears.
Laughter through the tears. I love when he is with Melanie and you can hear him walking around holding her hand, and he's like, and the best dance schools are in Houston, and it's almost like a little Rhett Butler moment with Bonnie, like his little girl Bonnie. Like you can tell he's like wants to spoil this little girl. It's really, really sweet. All the interactions of the family and friends, we see a glimmer of hope in their interactions and amid the sadness of the loss, which is similar, reminds me of the ending of Steel Magnolias too. Yeah. That ending where we see, a glimmer of hope. So before we dive in real quick, I want to let you know before we dive into talking about if we think it stands up, the sequel is called The Evening Star.
Oh, yeah. No, I don't know.
And Shirley MacLaine is in it.
Yeah, I don't think she won an Academy Award for that one. Speaking of laughter through tears. Do I think it stands up in today's world? Yes, sister, I do.
Absolutely. I mean, it is, tale as old as time.
Yep. And there's just something about those stories with mothers and daughters. It's just something. It's just something. What do you think?
Absolutely. I think there's the themes and the story of this film are like they were timeless. That's the word. Yeah. Tale as old as time. Moms and daughters often are very close and need each other and depend on each other. And it's hard. It's hard when you're apart. But just, like in this movie, she's there to the bitter end for her. This movie so deserved 5 Academy Awards. I know. Such great work. Such great work. Okay. Well, that wraps us up, y'all. I did not cry. I'm so proud. Me either. I teared up. You a lie. You a lie. I did not cry. I'm so proud of myself. But this wraps up this week's episode of Real Sisters Rewind. Thank you so much for joining us as we revisited this unforgettable, award-winning, heart-wrenching journey of Terms of Endearment. It has been such an emotional ride, and we hope you loved revisiting this classic as much as we did. We highly suggest, no matter how many times you watch it, right? Yes, I guarantee you, if you haven't seen it since back in the 80s or maybe even in the 90s, it's time to give it another watch. You'll love it.
Yes. And while this one was heavy, next week we're lightening the mood to something that's a bit more buoyant.
Buoyant. Oh, I see what you did there.
It took you a minute. I thought you'd like that.
All right, real fans, it's time for the clues for our next movie. First clue is it stars one of the most beloved on and off screen duos of the 80s.
And today too, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, for me, for sure.
Yeah. Okay, second clue. This 80s comedy takes falling for someone to a whole new level, literally.
And clue number 3. What begins as revenge turns into an unexpected, hilarious, sweet, precious love story.
Think you got it, real fans? If so, let us know on our Instagram or email us. And just know we love hearing your guesses, and we can't wait to dive into this one with you.
Until then, don't forget to follow us on social media, leave a review, follow, and share the podcast with your friends. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, sister.
Bye. Bye, sister.